Hi everyone, my name is Jocelyn. Welcome to the third episode of the series presented to you by The Roasters, Roasting Fair Trade. During this episode, it will be heavily centered around everything related to the social aspects of the coffee industry and their connections to fair trade. Questions related to ethical sourcing, labor, and fairness concerning workers will be discussed and dissected. This is all to analyze the claim that fair trade overall is not ethical through the implication of their unfair business tactics and policies. Whenever we think of coffee, large businesses such as Starbucks, Dunkin', or even the simple imagery that is coffee beans may come to mind. However, recently a popular question has been raised. Are these businesses practicing ethical sourcing? And how? Before jumping into that, let's take the time to define ethical sourcing, shall we? Ethical sourcing, as defined by Dublin Roasters Coffee, states that this means farmers and laborers are fairly compensated as well as being provided any necessary tools needed to competitively produce on the market. Now, how does this relate to businesses? And more importantly, fair trade. In a rapidly moving industry that requires not only the match that is supply and demand, workers are subjected to intense laboring conditions that may meet these very standards. As mentioned in earlier episodes, Fairtrade is a company that was built as a solution to this issue. Fairtrade has built a brand off of providing protection for workers' rights, ensuring fair terms of trade, and providing a platform that builds a foundation farmers may thrive on. In light of these issues, farmers may face such as finances and labor. Many consumers are searching to buy from businesses that produce through ethical sourcing. As a business, these companies are aware of this fact and therefore want to be promoted as a platform that is doing just that, or at the very least, appear to be. That is where Fairtrade comes in. By being attached to the name alone, a business may thrive, allowing customers to believe they are doing a good deed by placing their money in the hands of the good producers. Sadly, this couldn't be more than false when looking into the article written by Camino Island Coffee Roasters that discusses 5 problems with fair trade, consisting of issues with the quality of coffee, price distribution, limited access to service workers, intense labor due to certificates, and the small percentage of revenue that actually makes it to the farmers. Despite these being 5 separate issues, they are very connected in a sort of domino effect. Coffee is a popular beverage. Its consumption is high, and consumers are building a higher demand for quality coffee that is accessible. However, since the price of coffee that fair trade organizations offer farmers is so low, and there is no standard for the coffee in fair trade, farmers are placing their lowest quality coffee on the fair trade market. In addition, the accessibility of fair trade is limited, because in order to even engage in the benefit that is access to fair trade, farmers are required to pay for certification, which in turn cuts out the ability of less developed countries. Those who do have access are required to maintain fees and documents on top of the physical labor they have to conduct and potentially combat the barrier that is literacy, as those in developing countries and even some developed, as stated within the article written by Camino Island Coffee Roasters, are mostly illiterate. The article titled The Real Problems Behind Fair Trade, written by Kelly, pulls from the Fairtrade International Report from 2015 and 2016 that states that the fair trade scheme comes up to 4 cents per person per day. This fact alone further contributes to the reputation that fair trade coffee is not sustainable, nor good quality. This aspect that is highlighted in the article not only further highlights the fact that fair trade is not offering fair pricing to service workers, who are already subjected to intense labor and low pay, but it also foreshadows the incentive that coffee shops may have behind not supporting fair trade, which can make or break their brand, as far as consumers who are aware of ethical sourcing and see fair trade as a platform that provides it. It should be noted that one of the main solutions to be provided by fair trade is fair compensation. The presence of financial hardship pokes a very visible hole through the solid stance that once was. In addition to this financial issue, the scholarly journal titled The Role of Fair Trade Certification for Wages and Job Satisfaction of Plantation Workers by Katarina Krumbiegel, Martin Mietz, and Mike Wolny details a study that was conducted to determine the effect that fair trade has on hourly wage and the perspective that workers had as far as their work satisfaction. Within the random sample, there was 325 workers, all from 8 separate pineapple companies, export-oriented. Findings suggest that hourly wages and work satisfaction is high on fair trade certified plantations. Through acknowledging this study, it is shown that to some degree, fair trade is beneficial. Despite this, on a more specific and critical level, these benefits do not extend to the hired workers who are executing the labor on these farms. In fact, whether they are connected to fair trade organizations or not, they are paid at the same rate. So while there is a minimal increase concerning the pay rate for farmers, the very workers being subjected to the intense conditions are not benefiting in the slightest. These workers within the coffee industry serve as an integral component. Much like a house, it cannot stand without the firm foundation that is these very people. Through these sources, it is becoming apparent that fair trade is no different from the other companies that benefit from the labor and work of these hired workers. It is in the sense that they are being used as a stepping stone onto the stage of performative activism. Yet this does not stop there, as an account made by someone directly affected by fair trade can be found within the article The Problem with Fair Trade Coffee, written by Colleen Hite. This article opens and discusses an interview with Peter Giuliano, a past barista and co-founder of a wholesale roasting and coffee enterprise named Counterculture Coffee. Through his role, Peter Giuliano was able to develop relationships with farmers and travel to Latin America, Africa, and Indonesia. Initially, he accounts embracing the fair trade certification model. He had the belief that this was the best way to encourage and empower growers, as well as sustainability. Within the article, Colleen states that presently, Giuliano no longer purchases fair trade certified coffee for his business. He says, "I think fair trade as a concept is very relevant, but I think that the fair trade certified flow model is not relevant at all, and kind of never has been, because they were doing something different than they were selling to the consumer. That's exactly why I left Transfair, which is now Fair Trade USA. They're selling a different thing than they're producing." That statement made by Peter Giuliano says a lot. Having someone who works within the industry themselves denounce the fair trade organization weakens the very credibility the company hopes to establish, and further exhibits the unethical tactics that are currently occurring. I hope that this episode painted a clear image of something once distorted. Thank you for listening.